Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Nicole Quinn of Lightspeed Venture Partners. Nicole, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you tell us a little about your background and what you did before you got into investing in early stage companies?
Absolutely. So, like everybody has a different route into venture capital. Mine was the finance side of things. So I actually spent 10 years at Morgan Stanley. And I was covering, first of all, the retail companies. After the first year, fortunately, I was able to move over to cover the e-commerce companies. It's far more exciting in European markets. And then moved to New York to cover tech. And that was when we did a Facebook group on Pandora IPO. So it was really exciting times. But my father was an entrepreneur, and growing up and helping him with the business from a young age and seeing the ups and downs of that, I very much wanted to get into that world. So I went to a fintech startup. I worked there between their Series A and Series C and the marketing side, and loved that. So decided to go and do an MBA, and that's where I met Lightspeed. I was actually running my own company and pitching it to Lightspeed, and then I kept up a good relationship with them afterwards. And they said, have you thought about doing venture capital? And that was it, really. That was the big question that then allowed me to build a great relationship with Lightspeed, and then a year later come on board full time. And that was probably 3 years ago now.
Well, it sounds great. Sounds like you had a wide range of experience and a great ride all the way through your venture capital world you're in now. What really caught my eye about your work was the investing in media. I traditionally thought venture capital didn't think much of the media space, but your article seemed to indicate there's a lot of opportunity there. Can you tell us a little about the current state of media and what you think about it? It seems like there's a lot of the traditional magazines being sold, Fortune, Time, and others, and a lot changing in the space. But what do you say is the current state?
So I think that's absolutely correct, that a lot of venture capitalists have been calling the end of media investment. But I think the time to invest is always when everybody's telling you that it's not. So definitely being out of consensus and right is what we all hope to be as an investor. And for me, media is certainly not dead. It's just the fact that we need to look at media in a different way. So instead of purely looking at it in terms of ad revenue, we need to think about other business models. And so if we think about traditional ad revenue-driven businesses, then yes, like it is a really tough time because 72% of ad dollars is going to Facebook and Google right now. And actually 90% of the growth is going to Facebook and Google. So we're definitely in an environment where they're taking the lion's share. So the best media companies are the ones who are really thinking outside the box and are doing something in using their content to then drive commerce, or using the content to drive community, or having such brilliant content that consumers are willing to pay for it, and then they have paid subscription businesses. So those are certainly the areas that we get excited about and where I think media is going.
We equate media content to media or media to content, then just about every company on the planet is now a media company, and they're using it to drive whatever product, service, experience, or community they may have. But which of these sectors do you see gaining momentum and traction out there?
Which media companies are gaining traction? Well, let's think about that in different areas. So first of all, the media companies that started as a blog and then went into commerce, I think Rothy and Goop are two brilliant versions of that. Rothy started it into the gloss, and so it was a great media blog. Goop was Gwyneth Paltrow's newsletter. Started 10 years ago to the month. She started in London. And then you actually find that customers are asking you, where can I get these products? I wish that you did products like this. And you've really got to be listening to your customers and then building something for them. And so that's exactly what they did. I also think in the subscription side of things, Ipsy and FabFitFun have done a really brilliant job of, first of all, being content businesses and then launching subscription physical product companies. You also see a lot of other media, more traditional media publications, like The Information is one that we really like, where the quality of content is so good that we then are much more happy to pay for that. And so that gets us excited.
So which companies in your portfolio are you most excited about?
So we have a huge number of media companies in our portfolio, everything ranging from Snapchat to Giphy. And Giphy is a really interesting one to be calling out on the media side because to us, they very much define popular culture. That's how people are starting to communicate with one another through GIFs rather than through text, especially when you look at Gen Z today. So that's a New York-based media company that's doing tremendously well. Cheddar by John Steinberg, the ex-president of BuzzFeed that I mentioned earlier. He is just superstar who moves a million miles an hour and is creating a media business that you can find on Cheddar's website or Facebook or Twitter. And he's live streaming from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange in the morning, as well as from the Flatiron Building in New York in the afternoon with some really great guests and some very timely content. Girlboss is one of my investments that I'm excited about, which is really tapping into young millennials or Gen Z women who have so many questions, and many of these questions can be answered by one another. So it's a true community. And so that's a great example of starting with content and then moving that content into community. And whether it be the Girlboss rally, where people are definitely craving in real life experiences, or having that content through the digital community, both on their website and the app, which will shortly be out as well, which you should all download the Girlboss app shortly. So we have several investments, and then Goop as well for the premium luxury customer, where they can read the Goop newsletter or website and then buy the commerce afterwards. So it's certainly a space where we have not just been talking about, but been really active in terms of investing in.
Well, those are great examples. Appreciate you sharing those with us. So do you think these are going to be the early wins, or do you think there will be other groups that will be the early investment wins in this space?
I think there's going to be a lot of wins in this space. I think that we're only sort of scratching at the surface right now in terms of some of these companies. But if you look at Gautier and Farfetch Farm and Goop, these businesses are, some of them doing hundreds of millions of revenue. So have got to that point in a very short period of time. So those will be the wins. And then the other day I was meeting a news company, which is a news media business, but they have some really great AI technology that they're using. And that is a business that people are already paying a few dollars a month for to get their content. And so I think there's going to be a lot more wins with companies like that along the way.
And great. So for those who want to invest in this sector, what would you advise them to look for in this area? What are the keys to being successful at this sector?
So the team is so important in this space. So my partner, Jeremy Liu, had known John Steinberg when he was the president of BuzzFeed for a long period of time. And so when he came to Jeremy and had a really key insight around the way that young people were consuming news and content today, and not being through the typical CNBCs and CNNs of the world and long-form content, it's much more short-form, fun, in and out, influencers and people sort of talking for short periods of time. And he had these great insights around the space. And so it was a bet on him, a bet on his insight, and a bet on the team that he has been able to hire. So if you're an investor listening, an angel investor or an institutional investor, then I would also say that you should be looking at companies that are really disrupting a space, but also a founder that you really believe in, someone you think is going to, move mountains to make sure that their theory of how the world should look happens. And so that to me is exciting.
Does the founder have to have a charisma or a great shining star around them that generates interest all by itself, or is it just someone that's a very good purveyor of business as far as being able to execute on the strategy? What key elements does a founder need to have to be successful at the media sector?
Charisma is definitely not one of the characteristics that I say they have to have. It's certainly an ability to storytell, and that is both to investors as well as people that you're going to hire, people that you're going to partner with. And so perhaps you could call that charisma, but I would say that it's so much more than that. It's their ability to really convey the huge opportunity that they believe they're going after and convince people that they should be coming on board because this is, a tremendous game-changing opportunity. I also really look for another characteristic, which is grit, determination, because you're going to go through so many different pivots for all the founders listening. They'll be able to tell us that they've been through so many different twists and turns and pivoting their business from one thing to something slightly different, especially when a customer tells you they want something else. So that's the best reason to pivot based on what the customer is willing to spend their cold, hard dollars on. So as a result, I think you do need a lot of grit and determination in this business, and that's something that we really look for.
Of course, the founding team or the team is always the most important equation, but then another one is often the technology. And of course, technology and media is moving it from offline to online, and so that trend is certainly there. But once you're online, where does technology come to play? Do certain technology companies have an advantage over others? Of course, Google has an advantage based on search engine. Facebook has one on scale. Those type of things are there. But within media itself, what are the technological advantages you think are coming up?
I actually just came back from an AI conference in London, and it was fascinating. I was talking about voice being a technology that I'm super excited about. I believe that voice could be a really significant platform, given the fact that over 10% of US households already have smart speaker in them, and apparently over 400 million people are using Siri. So that's a technology I'm excited about. But bigger than that is AI and just thinking about content that not necessarily is being written and taking a lot of time and resources to put together that, but instead using AI to bring you the content that is really personalized to the person. So that to me is an overarching technology that I'm pretty excited about in the media space.
That's great. So for startups that are operating in this space, what do you see as the challenges they face coming up? Is it technological? Is it business? Is it competition? What challenges do you see the startups having to overcome in the media space in particular?
It's a good question around the challenges because it's true that the times have definitely changed. I don't think that it's technological. I actually think that in lies the opportunity, not necessarily the challenge. For me, the area that I'd be more worried about is the fact that if your business is purely driven on ad revenue, then you are running so hard just purely to keep the same revenue as you did last year. So you're running so hard and end up just standing still. Anyone who's listening who has an ad revenue business will know exactly what I mean. And it's just so difficult when you just see so much dollars going to work with Facebook and Google. And so that to me is the hardest thing. And so it's not necessarily competition from other media companies, but it's really the 2-3 big media companies that are taking, 2-3 big technology companies taking so much of the dollars.
You see that changing anytime soon, that we won't be dominated by just such a small group of players, but that it'll be broken out into a larger group of equal competitors?
Unfortunately, I don't. The fact that it's 72% of ad revenue, but the growth is 90%, that to me shows that the second derivative is telling you that is actually going to get worse near term and not any better right away.
So as an investor in these companies coming into it and looking at these startups and wanting to be a part of that, what are the risks they have to mitigate? Clearly, ad-only revenue models are probably not going to succeed or succeed very well. But beyond that, what are the risks that they have to look at in order to determine if it's a good investment or not?
What are the risks that investors would have to sort of believe in, you mean, or believe that they can get over those risks?
That's right.
I think investors have to believe that there are other business models apart from just ad revenue that are really going to be the future of media. That's what I think that we need to believe.
And so where do you see the immediate opportunities to pursue in this space? Of course, you talk about subscription and experiential applications, but more specifically, what do you think are the immediate opportunities?
Actually, it's fine. I'll carry on. But yeah, the immediate opportunities to me that I think are really exciting are content to commerce, content to community, and then also content to subscription. So if you're building a business in that space, I'd love to talk and would love to be helpful along the way because I think that's where media is going. It's been really great chatting to you today, and hopefully this has been helpful for some of the listeners.
That's great. Well, in the last few minutes we have here, is there anything else we should cover?
No, I think that's great. Really lovely talking.
Well, great. Well, how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
So our website is lsvp.com, and so you can find me on the website, and my Twitter handle is NIK_Quinn, QUINN, Nicole Quinn.
We'll put that in the show notes. Thank you for taking time to talk today, and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Perfect. Thanks so much for having me on. Really enjoyed speaking today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.